Thanks for joining me again. This is Danny Cardwell from ThoughtWrestler.blogspot.com. And I want to talk about the Cobra effect. In economics, the Cobra effect is a term used to describe the unintended consequences of an action. And I think the Middle East right now is an unintended consequence of several actions over the course of several decades. U.S. involvement in the Middle East through investments that we've made, through regimes that we've supported, and through the funding of wars has caused the Middle East to spiral out of control. And it's easy to try to blame this on one administration versus the other. The truth is that every administration for the last 35 to 40 years, even up to the installation of the Shah of Iran, can take a certain amount of responsibility in what's going on in the deteriorating climate that is in the Middle East. What do we know for sure? The rise of ISIS or ISIL or whatever you want to call them, we can trace their weapons to the fact that we've given them weapons. We've supported every side of every war in the Middle East, it seems, for the last 30 plus years. We've sold arms to Iran. We've given arms to Iraq. We helped install Saddam Hussein. We took Saddam Hussein out. Syria, we were against Assad. Now we're kind of for Assad, and the list goes on and on. But this isn't about the politicians that have made these decisions or about beating up the U.S. for foreign policy. This is more importantly about the kids I spend time with. I volunteer my time helping kids. I edit papers. I help kids with math. I work out with kids in a wellness center. My wife has dedicated her life to kids. And we go to football games or volleyball games, basketball games, and we see these kids. And in my mind, I'm thinking, which of these kids are going to enlist in the military? Which of these kids are going to go off and have to fight in the next great war? And it troubles me in a way that I never thought about in the past. So many of these kids are enjoying what is the prime years they think of their lives. And they're worried about prom dates, going out, having money for pizza, and what they'll wear, and who has the newest iPhone or whatever. But they're so far removed from what could potentially be decisions made by others that could ultimately end their life. And there's an African proverb that says, "You take your army of men ready to kill, and I'll have my army of men willing to die, and I'll crush you." And I'm afraid that that's what's happening with the Middle East and the rise of some of these terror groups. There's videos of kids as young as 7 years old holding severed heads. Now, what goes into the making of a child that would hold a severed head at 7 years old? It's like, take your kid to work day, except for your Al Qaeda or your ISIS. And you learn how to hate, you learn how to kill, you learn how not to value life. And then I think about the kids that I work with, and I think about some 17, 18-year-old kid graduating and enlisting in the Army and having to fight some kid that's had 10 years of experience in hatred and that's willing to die. And it just bothers me. And I hear all these war hawks. You turn on any of the cable news stations, and you'll find someone willing to go and send your kids to go fight a war that they know they have no chance of fighting in. And they're so patriotic, and they're so animate about putting boots on the ground and making change and stomping out this enemy. And yet none of them are willing to do it. What I don't hear, and I challenge anyone to prove me wrong, is I never hear any 15, 16, 17-year-old kids that are fired up about going to a country they can barely pronounce, maybe can't find on a map, and fighting someone that they aren't familiar with or don't know anything about their cultures or traditions. Don't get me wrong, this isn't just a pacifist rant, but what it is just concern that I see these kids making decisions every day that will affect the rest of their lives. And then I see these kids have their lives affected by the decisions of others. And whether or not we face terrorists on their turf or on our turf, that's a choice that, is above my pay grade. What I do know is that any intervention in the Middle East will lead to more terrorists rising. You can't promote peace at the end of a gun barrel. You can't drop bombs and make people love you. And I don't care how many of Ahmed or Stubble's children you kill, as long as you leave one alive, you've made a new enemy. And so, in my mind, this doesn't have a theoretical resolution, but I think it deserves some calm. I don't think that these kids need to have the rest of their lives planned by someone that's not going to pick up a weapon and fight in the next great war this country has. And those are my thoughts.